welcome to another Quarrier Football Pregame Show. It's brought to you by the local best. It's where to go before you go. Colin Beckler, Matt Larson with you again this week, and we hit the game number 3 this week for the Quarriers as they are at home for the first time this year, taking on Chamberlain. Dell Rapids 1-1 on the season after their win last week in Sisseton, 40-0 over the Redmen. Chamberlain coming in at 0-2 last week, losing to Vermilion 28-6. So let's talk about last week's game a little bit. Again, you were there up in Sisseton, got to see the team perform well in the first half.
Yep.
A lot of time for some of the other players as well. Thoughts on last week's game against Sisseton?
You know, it's a nice field. It was a beautiful day. All the things you want in football. You know, a team we're not familiar with, which is another nice thing to kind of have. But this week we kind of found out, you know, what this team is all about and what we're capable of. And what I mean by that is this team is all about togetherness. And, you know, we've said that before in a couple other shows, that this is a unique senior leadership team. One of the things that they announced starting lineups is that they said Dell's prefers to do it as a unit and not individual. And it all kind of starts, that really kind of sets the tone. And then what are we capable of? We show that we can run multiple sets, multiple people involved. We just don't have to be a one-sided offense. And for that first half, we looked good, and the energy was good. Everyone had fun. And then the second half, like you said, we got a lot of kids involved in doing things and getting that experience. So it's really a fun outcome and time for these kids.
Well, you mentioned Sisseton being a team that we're not familiar with. This will be the third straight week that we're playing an opponent that's not typically been on our schedule in years past. You talked about the first week with Canton. We had Sisseton last week. We got Chamberlain this week. Teams, again, that we're not used to seeing during the regular season. And off the schedule came teams that we're used to seeing. West Central, not on the regular season schedule this year. T, not on the schedule, more because they moved up a class. We lost Flandreau, and, you know, we've played Mitchell the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
And then we add Sioux Falls Christian later in the week. What kind of thoughts do you have about the schedule and how different it is from years past?
You know, I think it's two-way. You can really think of it two ways. Number one, it's good because you get new looks, new offenses. There's no, you know, last year this team type feeling, right? It's just a brand new slate. But on the other hand, you're going to miss some of those rivalries like a West Central. And, you know, for years past, everyone in Dells will talk about the Flandreau games and how that was a big deal. So it's just a new era moving forward, and they shifted some things. And I think it's good for this year's team to play other teams rather than, I think in the long run in the playoffs, it'll help us in that sense.
So I want to come back to that Sisseton game coming into tonight's game against Chamberlain. Again, you saw that they played well last week. What are the positive takeaways you saw from that game, as well as maybe some things that might still need some work?
You know, positive things. I think overall that the offensive line did a much better job, and the defensive line did a much better job. Now, why is that? In part because of who you're playing, right? But that's the kind of time you can learn to better your technique, better your feet, all those kind of little tiny things that allow you that you're not doing it, you know, against your teammates in practice. It's kind of like a live way to do it, and so that you can, you know, alter things like more quickly and then be able to work on them in a game live atmosphere. So that is a positive. On the negative side, you know, just a couple of those mental mistakes, jumping off sides. Not that we do it a lot, but those are the kind of things at the wrong time can really kill you too. So,
well, I know tonight, the first home game that we've had this season, game number 3, but it's also the last time Dell Rapids has played at home since that 34-0 loss to West Central at homecoming last year. How does that all figure into tonight's game excitement level of playing at home?
You know, honestly, I don't even think it matters. I would like to sit here and, you know, as we get older, we kind of think about nostalgia, but going back to this year's group, they are the senior, the leadership team is just different. I think what's in the past is the past, and the whole drive is just forward thinking. But there might be a little bit of that, this is our field, we got to defend, because last time we did lose here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So coming up on the keys of the game here, first we'll start with Chamberlain. What are you looking to see Chamberlain do, or things that they need to do here tonight? Yeah,
so watching the film, so they played Madison, and they lost the first game to Madison, and then they lost to Vermilion last week. And so watching those two different films, completely different squads. Against Madison, they were under center the whole time, did a lot of handing off. Last week against Vermilion, all shotgun. So I'm not sure what we're going to see tonight, but they are young. Their quarterback's a sophomore. They graduated a ton of people. 2 starters on the offensive line are back. So replace. They're kind of in the same predicament we are. Their specialty positions are good, but they're inexperienced. And so you can see some of that coming out. So for the keys for Chamberlain, what I think they need to do is be consistent. Play as a unit. Try to, a lot of people in a lot of different new spots. Try to collectively do that. Another key for them is in football, I've always said you don't need a thick playbook in high school. You need to run about 4 to 5 plays really, really well, maybe out of a couple, 4 or 5 different sets, but it's the same play. And so have those 4 to 5 plays and run those well, execute them. And then on defense, I think a key to the game that they can have some kind of a benefit or something towards Dell's is don't let us get to the outside. We love the outside. We love to turn the corner. We have speed in multiple facets. So one of the things, one of their players is a junior, last name Huntemer. His brother plays at Nebraska. So that is not little. He's like 260 pounds, but he's their tight end. And so that's an athlete to watch tonight. Anytime you get a good athlete on the field, you have to pay attention to him. I'm sure we'll say his name numerous times, but he's one to watch.
Now for Dell Rapids, what are some of the keys that they got to work on here tonight to pick up that second straight win?
Yeah, I think getting more people involved, keeping those, that repetition. So, and by that I said, if you need to sub someone out, just one person on like a kickoff, everyone needs to be ready at all times to go in and play. You can't yell over at a name and then the kid's got to go find his helmet. No, just be ready to play all the time. Number 2, try new things on offense. We succeeded with it last week, okay? And then our defensive line. I'm going to focus on that a lot because that is where it all starts. We still, even last week, made a couple, errors in which our backs and our cornerbacks, linebackers are making too many of those tackles. And so we want to have a little bit more presence up front.
All right, with that, any more final thoughts here before kickoff later tonight? Beautiful night for football.
It is.
A great game.
It's good. Now, one of these things, this is a classic catch-22, Matt, because you're at a thing where your last game, our starters played till halftime. I can see this game going the same way, and that's always good to get those wins. But the catch-22 is we have to have our starters know how to play 4 quarters of football. And how can you do it against a couple of these opponents? So that's a fine line to we're not running up the score versus we got to prepare for next week too. Right. So it's kind of a catch-22. That to me is going to be a difficult thing to try to manage and still get your kids ready.
All right, with that, I know we forgot to do this last week.
Yeah.
We'll put it back in this week. What are we predicting for tonight's score?
Honestly, I think Chamberlain will score again in the second half. So I'm going to go 52-6.
6, all right.
Yeah.
I'll stay about 48-8.
Okay.
We'll give it 48-8 tonight.
Okay.
Well, be sure to stay with us again. Thank you for joining us on this pregame show kickoff at 7 o'clock. Colin Beckler with the call right here on BigSouMedia.com.